Sergio Perez hasn't had the greatest season in Formula One, and we know this, okay? People like Max Verstappen laying the smackdown in that Red Bull, and it's no surprise. It's no surprise. Sergio Perez is feeling the heat, and this season, unfortunately, he has let us down for a title race. It has to be said, people, he's let us down. However, we're only halfway into the Formula One season, okay? With Spa on the weekend, okay? And then the summer break, The summer break is fastly upon us. Nico Rosberg has said something in the past week that has caught my attention and I think should catch Sergio Perez's attention as well. Checo Perez for all the Mexican crew out there. Now, in Sky F1 podcast, had their weekly show as they always do every single Tuesday, and Nico Rosberg was a guest on the Sky F1 podcast channel, and he goes on to say, Sergio Perez is somebody who he was talking about kind of giving his own experience about what it was like facing Lewis Hamilton, a driver that's quite dominant, a driver that is very difficult to beat. And how do you overcome? Because, of course, Nico Rosberg overcame one season in 2016 and won the championship away from Lewis Hamilton. Now, it's easy to be the champion and talk from a championship perspective, but the likes of a Sergio Perez has never been in a title race before, okay? And one of the main things that Nico Rosberg said, though, which was quite interesting, was like, we heard Sergio talk all winter and at the beginning of the season, I want to win the championship. I want to win the title. I want to fight for this title. I'm in this title race with Max Verstappen. And whether, at the start of the season, to be fair, Sergio was in the mix. He was there. Whether if it wasn't podiums, it was race wins. And it seems to have happened that, there's been a moment in the middle of the season, the middle of the first half of the season, where Sergio Perez just does not look right. A lot has gone on, and he's talked about it, psychologically and mentally about things not quite working out. And fair enough, mentally, it must be very, very challenging going up against Max, because it's one thing to have the fastest car, but it's another thing to be as superb as Max Verstappen has been in that Red Bull. Hats off. He's been phenomenal this season. But the thing is that, Nico Rosberg said this one thing. I always call him Nico Hulkenberg. I don't know why. But one thing that Nico Rosberg was saying was that Sergio Perez needs to stop talking about this championship. Stop talking about winning races. Stop talking about any of these things, right? Focus on doing a good job week in, week out. Focus on having a good race. Focus on having a good qualifying session. Focus on doing everything, all the boxes that need to be ticked in a practice session. And if he takes his mind off the title, if he takes his mind off fighting with Max, then maybe, just maybe, he might actually have, a chance against Max Verstappen. Because it seems like the pressure's got too much. And this is a man who is, he's not making it into Q3 most of the, a few times this season. And even this season where, last weekend in the Hungarian Grand Prix, he qualified in Q3, but he qualified P9. And what's even more scary is that P9 was the highest qualifying finish he's had for the last 6 races. If you tell me that somebody who drives a Red Bull, the fastest car, the best car in Formula One this season, without a shadow of a doubt, okay, is struggling to get into Q3, but when they do, they get to P9, okay, and that's the best performance they've done over the last 6 races. It's not on. It's not on, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have it right. It is not on. Sergio Perez needs to buckle down. But I think there is some wisdom coming out of Nico Rosberg. This is a man who was fighting with Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton in that Mercedes heyday, where it was bloody difficult to beat Mercedes, okay? And Nico Rosberg says he focused. He said he got off all social media because one of the things that triggered him the most was what people were saying. What are the people saying about Nico Rosberg? It triggered him. It triggered him. And so he said, you know what? I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to delete everything. The hardest part of it is Thursdays, it's media day in Formula One. You're answering questions from journalists. Journalists are asking you so many questions. He would even talk about, when he was on holiday in the summer break, his parents would say, or like, father-in-law or whoever would be like, let's try a new sport because Lewis Hamilton is kicking your butt. Okay. And that's how bad it got. Now, that's somebody who's overcome. He beat Lewis in the end. Now, of course, many will argue, well, he ran away from a fight, didn't he? He won the title in 2016 and retired. Job done. I think age 31, job done. You know, Kevin Magnussen's 30. That gives you kind of the perspective. You know, Lewis Hamilton is 30, what, 7 or 8. Fernando Alonso 40 plus. So it kind of gives you the perspective. However, he's somebody who has conquered those obstacles that came his way. And he's giving that advice to Checo Perez saying, listen, and he was saying, by the way, he was saying that he's probably, Checo's probably doing this already, but just focus on having a good weekend. Focus on having a good Saturday. Focus on having a good race. Get points back in that team. The confidence will gain. The momentum will come. Let's not talk about championship. Let's not talk about beating Max Verstappen. And I think he kind of alluded to the point that, you know what, having all this thing around him is the last thing he needed. He did not need to have this conversation over his head. And maybe that's what's contributed to that situation. So we hope for the season, at least, that Sergio Perez can nip whatever's in the bud. He got a podium in Hungary. He finished third, okay? Started ninth, finished third. Strong. That's a solid finish as far as we're concerned. But he's always having to recover from the mistakes he makes on a Saturday. Now, this weekend, it's a sprint weekend. We've got Friday, we've got Saturday and Sunday, okay? And Sergio needs to make it count. One step at a time. He's talked about mentally has been the problem, and that's, we can all agree that's probably the case because Sergio Perez is not a poor driver. He's a good F1 driver. Is he the likes of Max Verstappen? No, unfortunately not. And I root for a person like Sergio Perez because he drove for my team once upon a time, McLaren, okay? So I've always got a soft spot for Sergio. However, he needs to sort this out. He needs to sort it out once and for all. And listen to Nico Rosberg. Checo, listen to Nico Rosberg. Formula One fans out there, pay attention to what Nico just said. Don't worry about championships. Don't worry about fighting Max. Focus on just doing the simple things every single weekend. And over time, it'll become superb. Let's see how the season goes. Let's see how the 2023 season goes in Formula One. If you like Formula One content like this, make sure you smash a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts on Nico Rosberg's comments. Is what he said bang on? Do we believe that if he focuses the way Nico did it in 2016, that Sergio might have, if not this year, a good crack at it next year for the title? Because he's let us down, hasn't he? For the Formula One neutral, for the Formula One purist. Unfortunately, he's let us down this season. But all is not over. Sergio Perez could still become a world champion. He really could, because he's in the best car in the world. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Smash a like on this video. Until next time, lights out.